Today we are talking about lifestyles of the rich and famous. You did, with yours truly. Now remember, you might say, Marquett, why don't you give the broke people a little bit of love? Well, it turns out I have. I actually did an exclusive on patreon.com/the Saint and the Sinner entitled Lifestyles of the Broke and Aimless. And during that time, we take a stroll through the ghetto. And in the ghetto, we explain the behaviors and realities that keep a brother down. But right now, we talking about this bread, this opulence, yiddy. So welcome to my life. I try to share a little taste of it with you every now and then. But being wealthy is something you become. Some might say individuals are born wealthy, but this is not true. You may be enculturated into wealth, meaning taught the habits and mindsets to maintain it. You did. So never consider yourself a poor person, for that might be your financial circumstance, but through knowledge and discipline, you can certainly change that. And so this is, it's March Madness, you dig, all the way through April. And so I said, why don't we go ahead and grab a super player suite, you dig? We grabbed the biggest one they got. And in fact, it's such a big hotel room that it feels like it's not a hotel room or a suite, whatever. We got a whole conference table in here. So I felt like I should share this with you because when I was a young man and had not been exposed to a lot of things, these were the kind of things that I wish I could have saw. I wish I would have known existed, and I wish I saw a young fly cat such as your boy who could say, hey, it's possible for you. What I want to talk to you about are a couple habits, and I'm going to give my perspective. There was an article written, in fact, there was a book written on the habits of self-made millionaires. I'm going to go through them and tell you my perspective on it and then give you a bit of an elaboration. The number one habit of self-made millionaires is that they are readers. And your boy is definitely a reader. In fact, I have some literature with me right now. Everywhere I go, I take the bag. And in the bag, I have True Wealth, which is a book, knowledge. If you haven't read The Black Box, it just occurred to me, at the end of this book, you see how my mentality changed from an employee to a boss. And that's a meaningful transition that everyone should go through. And so being a reader is critical because you get to expose yourself to individuals, to ideas that don't exist in the impoverished community or the middle class community that you may be a part of. One thing I want to let you all know, for all of the hustlers on their come up who are strategizing and working hard, the number one trait I would recommend to you is not to care what other people think. You see, those who are successful are people who are in the game. And people who are in the game understand that you have to operate, you have to take risks, you have to work hard. Those who are in the bleachers are the ones who are watching and sneering and making foolish comments. Well, that's because they're not in the game. It's easy to be a spectator and be critical when you don't have to actually do the work. Which is to say, it's easy to box from the audience rather than in the ring. In fact, on one of my comments on my other channel, my main channel, I saw a young man wrote, "You ashy." And I thought, oh, am I ashy, darling? Well, in that case, perhaps I'll get some of this Pierre Balmain lotion and rub it all over my ashy black body. You see, you find impoverished people, their thoughts are focused on trivialities and irrelevant things. That's how I knew he's impoverished, because no one really cares about being ashy when they have bigger fish to fry. And if I am ashy, as I said, I'll rub some Balmain lotion all over my ashy, wealthy body. Pierre Balmain. Anyways, that's what I'm saying, is that all of the criticism and evil and wickedness of the masses, you'll have to ignore it. And a major trait of those who are wealthy is that they are positive. You will hear positive thoughts and words come out of their mouth. They have a can-do attitude, and in fact, they spread that to the people they're around. Well, the PayPal, marquettb@gmail.com. The reason you cannot super chat is because the Google Corporation has attempted to silence me and commit financial violence against me by blocking the super chats. but we are not worried. Use alternative means. So thank you for that meaningful question. So this is kind of the other area, and it's probably hard for you to judge distance, but this is a big enough distance that if I wanted to run some sprints in here to get some exercise, there's plenty of room. Another thing that I want to point out is you hear a lot of people have these false ideas about those who are wealthy, and mostly the ideas are false coming from people who are not wealthy. They're just making up their best guess. Something I've observed on a consistent basis among those who are wealthy is that number one, they're reliable. If they tell you they're going to do something, they actually convert and get it done. And so for me, having observed this of people who are wealthy or becoming wealthy, if I'm dealing with someone and I notice that they say that they're going to do something, however small, and they don't do it, it makes me start taking steps away from this person. Now, I can understand if someone is wealthy and famous and they're like super busy and they say, hey man, I'm gonna call you at 5 o'clock, and then they'll text, hey, I can't call at 5, I gotta call at 6. I understand they're dealing with overwhelm, right? But if you're dealing with an average regular Joe and he says, hey man, I'm gonna go do X, Y, and Z, I'll be back in 2 hours, and he's not back in 2 hours, I tend to assign that to irresponsibility, and I don't want to associate with that person. So if you ever have the privilege of being around someone who's wealthy or talented or on their way up, make sure you conduct yourself in a way that is going to endear you to them, because they don't need you. That's the whole definition of wealth, is abundance, meaning you have a lot of everything. Mostly of the things people want, which are called greenbacks. Right? I have a friend I've known since I was 13. I'm now 26. That's a beautiful thing, Harry. And it's always nice when your friends grow and evolve with you. And if you're evolving quickly, sometimes you might have to leave people behind. The key is that whether it's in romance or in friendship, you never leave behind an asset. So if someone is a bill, meaning they're an expense of time, an expense of emotion, you feel drained after dealing with them, set that person to limited association. And sometimes those persons may be family, maybe your own parents. It doesn't mean you're forgetting about them. It just means that you are stepping away so that you can pursue your goals. And let me share another fact that was pointed out about those who are wealthy. Those who are wealthy pursue their own goals, not the goals others have assigned to them. Not the goal that your culture put on you, because they say in our culture, we want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, an engineer. They pursue the goals they want, not because their parents said, hey, I'm a judge, you should be a judge or a lawyer. No, they pursue their goals, what is true and truly possible for them. Another thing that is common to the wealthy is that they exercise. I notice this to be extremely consistent. There are very few exceptions, except the government of Jersey, that fat guy, Chris Christie, disgusting individual. But most wealthy people definitely exercise on a regular basis, whether they're an athlete, a former athlete, or not. It's hugely important to them. And I think it's because they understand the mind-body connection. And the most difficult thing to do is to exercise regularly when you have so much of what people want: wealth, women. You're like, well, why do it? I don't need to, right? It's not a necessity, so you have to be that internal driving force in the mind.
He said, I have a friend I've known since I was 13. I'm 26. I think about going into business with him, but he recently married a single mom of two. Would that bad life decision spill into our business?
I am not going to say it's necessarily a bad life decision. Generally speaking, we ought to avoid lonely mothers and not assume the burdens of others. That meaning those kids that carry on suitcases, baggage that she showed up with. But she may have some exceptional qualities and some things that are unknown to us. So we might try not to judge the personal affairs of another man, but certainly it should put up your antenna as it has. So I commend you for being cognizant of that possible misstep. But in terms of business, if he's been a trustworthy, honest, hardworking, disciplined man and friend over a decade, it sounds as though history is a teacher and he may be a good partner for you. So I don't see why you shouldn't try it out. And remember, as you create businesses, sometimes you lose business partners, sometimes you fire employees, and things will evolve. Make sure that as you create structures and you formalize legal paperwork, founders agreements, you make sure you have the room to maneuver him out if that needs to be the case. Always make sure the passwords are in your name, the bank account has your name. Make sure that you're influencing and controlling as much as possible. He writes, peace to the saints looking to book a consultation soon. Do, because I had two or three, I had three today, three consultations today. And it was so enriching because I get to hear new ideas and help people whittle down their idea into something that can make them $1. In fact, the second gentleman that I spoke with, this was his second consultation, and I've been seeing his business grow, and I know he's going to be successful because he's a very hardworking gentleman. Then I had another consultation with a saint I've never met before, and so it's a pleasure to make his acquaintance, enjoy his high energy, and I could tell he had a lot of hustle, and so I was able to not only give him some good business advice, but also advise him on how. You see, knowing what to do is one thing, knowing how to do something is yet another. And so that's something that I really imparted upon him and taught him about how to focus, you see, because focus is really what will separate the artist from the businessman. Focus is what will separate the talker from the doer. And when you get into a consultation, you can get the attention that you need, based on who you are, based on your background, education, personality, and then we can look at what's realistic for you to make a buck or for you to improve your relationship, improve your image, whatever is top of mind to you. So look forward to it, Saint.
Okay, King Modi sent a question. He is an emperor, so I'm going to read this to you. He said, you help us on how to communicate with people, use my lips and make them do what I want them to do, so we can be successful in life and understand people and their desire.
Well, the first thing to understand is that it's much better to be around someone who shares a way with you, who shares values. For if you're around someone in which you have, a major difference of values, then you're going to have to do a lot of convincing, a lot of persuasion, a lot of arguing. So, being that there are billions of persons on the planet Earth, you'd be wise to be around individuals that have an attitudinal affinity for you and what you believe and what you need to get done. Therefore, collaboration is smooth and seamless. You see, there are individuals whom I would come into their presence and we wouldn't vibe. As soon as I notice there's a lack of vibe, I know I'm a fish out of water. I'm not in the place I should be. So I encourage you to be around people who are similar enough to you, have skills, and are open to collaborating. You'll find the easiest way to collaborate is when there's mutual benefit. So always speaking the language of we. Always talk about how we can win, what the outcomes are that will benefit the other person. You see, too often people are so selfish and thoughtless that when they speak a word to another person, they forget that they're talking to someone else. It's like they can't get outside of their own head. People say to me, hey, Marquett, why don't you put all of your stuff on a podcast? Take all the audios, put them all on a podcast. And I'm thinking, well, tell me more. Why would I do that? And they say, well, because I like to hear stuff when I'm talking. I'm like, that's fantastic. That benefits you, but it's going to take me 40 hours of my time. And like, what's the upside for me? Do I not matter in this situation? Do I not have a lot of things I have to do? Am I about to make money? Am I about to contribute to the good of the world doing? How do I benefit? So too often people forget to be empathetic in their conversation, especially as a man. You must know that people rarely want to do anything for you as a man out of the kindness of their heart. So you must always think about that mutual benefit and speak benefit to that person and engage in reciprocity that will benefit that person that you seek to collaborate with or influence.
Okay.